This jet looks like it's straight from a French comic book, but it's real. Powered by a new engine type unfathomable to the world, it has in all essence unlimited speed. And with 2 anti-air guided missiles and up to 40 rockets, it's the perfect Soviet bomber interceptor. But that isn't all. The French also came up with some even more crazy designs, some that feature double trouble. The journey from fantasy to high 1950s technology is one that almost never happened, with Nazis, politics, and African wars getting in the way. This is the incredible tale of the French Leduc 022. Hey, don't forget that we just launched a merch store, so jump on and check it out. I've tried really hard to come up with actual cool items, so support the channel if you like and get something cool today. France, 1913. Under rising World War I tensions around the world, a local designer and engineer by the name of René Lourin had an idea. And apologies in advance with my French pronunciations. An idea that ironically was so nuts at the time, no one took it seriously, getting only published in the back pages of Aerophile magazine. It was called the ramjet. The idea was that the forward motion of the engine itself would introduce air into the combustion chamber and thus produce significantly more exhaust and speed. But in a world where planes only moved as fast as a train and were primarily made of fabric, the engine wouldn't be moving fast enough to get that air, so it was a folly that was ignored. But that didn't stop another Frenchman with pretty much the same name, René Leduc, from being inspired. Flash forward to after the war in the roaring 1920s, and our René 2.0 was working for Breguet Aviation. Over a nice bottle of Merlot, he managed to convince his bosses to give him a go at his engine idea, one that would use a series of valves to push the air into the jet engine. But this wouldn't really be a jet engine that we know today, nor a ramjet, but would be dubbed a pulse jet. And because it wasn't as efficient as his 1913 idea, he immediately scrapped it to revise into a version 2.0. Again, this wouldn't stop Leduc. Side note, ironically, this initial pulse jet wouldn't be forgotten and would be those devious Germans that would take the concept for their V1 rocket bombs. Damn those Nazis. By 1933, and yes, with war once again on the horizon, Leduc got the small grant from the government to build a prototype engine of his ramjet idea. Planes were now going faster, and the air intake problem was solved. The concept was tested in flight and garnered quite the attention from around the world, again including the Nazis. In 1937, the French government commissioned a ramjet aircraft prototype, with the hope that this plane could be ready just in case that they had to go to war. But spoiler alert, by 1939, it wasn't. During the development of this new fighter plane, Leduc had a problem. He needed a way to communicate with other aerospace engineers around the world without being caught by the Nazis, or later, the Russians. We can only imagine that had he had the technology, he would obviously use private internet access, the best VPN in the world today. By using a virtual private network, or VPN for short, Leduc could hide his IP address and safeguard his internet connection through an encrypted tunnel, like drilling a tunnel specifically to America or England to exchange classified information. Sorry Nazis, better luck next time. But Leduc would have to be smart and known that there was far more than just security with a VPN. He would also be able to change his location and access deals in other areas, like cheaper holidays in cheaper countries. Plus, he wasn't all work and no play. With private internet access, he could watch more shows on Netflix, or perhaps back then, more radio plays that were hidden in other countries. Leduc could also use his private internet access subscription to protect an unlimited amount of devices at the same time. It's heroic tales like this that remind me of that famous saying of Leduc. By clicking on my link in the description, you can get 83% off private internet access. That's just $2.03 a month, and you also get 4 extra months completely for free. What a strange fellow, but fantastic advice all the same. His first version, dubbed the Leduc 010, had the iconic circular double-hulled fuselage. The pilot would sit at the front of the engine in the inner fuselage with the air tank all around him. With a nose cone in front, the pilot would have no forward visibility. It was a very small with a wingspan of only 10 meters with small ailerons and a conventional tail for steering. There was also a retractable landing gear with 2 wheels. As it was a ramjet aircraft, it would not have been able to take off on its own, relying on a larger aircraft to carry it up to speed. Alas, the war was in full swing by 1940, and Leduc and his team were fastening the last bolt when the Nazis swept through their country. The team and the prototype had to be evacuated to escape the invaders, and it was in the south of France where an errant bombing raid from the enemy destroyed the craft. Which ironically may have been best considering the Nazis, or the Germans at the time if you could be in particular, had an insatiable appetite for all things fast. They had jet engines under development, but if they had had a functioning ramjet, that would have been an incredible steal. So with no plane, Nazis all around, you would think that that would be over. But as we know, that didn't stop Leduc. Waiting patiently for the end of the war, the team was able to resume work rebuilding the prototype, and on the 21st of April 1949, the Leduc 010 ignited its ramjet engine for the first time and was able to climb and maneuver under its own power. This proved the concept and showed the future was speed. Jumping onto his own bandwagon, Leduc founded his own company with a goal to build a functioning high-speed ramjet fighter plane. His first attempt was to take the 010 prototype and add on small turbojets to the wings, but this proved to lack the power to get it to take off. But it's during this prototype phase that the 021 got its pexel glass cockpit, or rather the glass ring. It would allow the pilot to see out of the window all around him and give him unparalleled views. The prototype would go on to fly 250 flights and prove that the concept worked, although it stopped short of breaking the barrier at Mach 095. In 1953, the French government and its air force issued a specification for an interceptor capable of taking on any Soviet bombers, whilst also being able to take off from a grassy runway only 1 kilometer long. Leduc, knowing his chance to shine was now, delivered in spades. Dubbed the Leduc 022, it would be similar to the 021 but with several new improvements. It would have an escape pod with a parachute at the front half of the plane, detaching and in flight if there was an issue. And there was also a radar fitted into the nose cone. There was also an improved landing gear to support solo takeoffs and landings. Yes, this version would be able to take off and land on its own thanks to the addition of a secondary turbojet engine. The plane would use this to get up to speed before switching over to the gigantic ramjet. Once it intercepted an enemy aircraft, it would use 2 Nord AA-20 air-to-air missiles, but also carry 40 unguided rockets for specific strikes. As speed was the game, it didn't have any guns nor carry any bombs, because back then they believed that dogfighting was a thing of the past. By 1957, the Leduc 022 used its ramjet in flight for the first time, and by the end of the year, it was regularly flying at Mach 1.15. With the plane flying, there were further plans to produce a 030 version that comprised of 2 fuselages in tandem, doubling the range and firepower. Ideally, the second cockpit would be occupied by a weapons or radar operator. There was also a bigger version dubbed the 040 and a 050 version with even faster speed, such as flying at Mach 5 and the ability to carry nuclear weapons. The future was here, it was fast, and it was all thanks to our hero, Leduc. But then history took a dark turn. The test prototype had completed 140 successful flights and was leaving for mission 141 when disaster struck. Taxiing on the runway, the engine caught fire and the entire fuselage was melted and destroyed. "Fear not," said Leduc, for he had a second prototype ready to go, but a quick phone call from the French government delivered some bad news. His project was cancelled. You see, ongoing wars in Africa, specifically Algerian, and issues in Vietnam had pushed the French military budget to the limit, and a super fast ramjet fighter wasn't really needed against these local foes. In addition, other aircraft that were primary turbojet creations, such as the Dassault Mirage, fit the project specifications without breaking the bank. Sure, turbojets go far slower than Mach 5 ramjets, but the Leduc 022 was simply seen as an overkill for the time. Now, I want to speak a little bit about the flaws of the aircraft. It wasn't as crash hot as I may have led you all to believe so far in this video, and I'm sorry if that comes across as clickbaity. For example, it was made entirely out of steel. The other designs were far more lighter and used composite materials or other advanced materials that allowed them to save on fuel and be far more maneuverable. It is likely, had the contest gone ahead, that this would have been the killing blow for his application. Plus, there were some drag issues with the design that would have severely hampered its speed, and it wasn't the only casualty, with an equally cool Griffin facing the same fate. Let me know if you want to see a video on this project as well. With the fighter jet scrapped, René Leduc moved on to other things. He would move his business from fighter jets to hydraulics, developing pumps for excavators. A rather humbling ending for one of France's most brilliant aerospace engineers. And in the end, it was Leduc who stopped Leduc. Believe it or not, I've actually visited this plane at the Paris Aerospace Museum, and you can see all about it here on my second channel, Aviation Station. So go check it out straight after this one. And this video was also put together with help from planehistoria.com, who had an excellent and far more detailed story of this incredible aircraft and its incredible creator, René Leduc. Honestly, I really just love saying the name. That's why I kept saying it so much. Thanks for watching.